First of all, I just wanted to use this opportunity to once again express my condolences to the family and friends and all members of the PNP on the passing of one of our great stalwarts, former member of parliament for 4 different constituencies. I'm not sure if that is not a record, but also a former minister of tourism, attorney at law, and a great son of the People's National Party, especially in Western Jamaica, where he made a huge difference to our fortunes in recent times, the great comrade Francis Tulloh. Comrades, we've had a wonderful NEC. I want to thank the Secretariat and the chairperson for their wonderful work today. I think we got through the agenda well, and we had a good discussion on a number of issues. And I'm particularly pleased that we passed that resolution at the end, which is really a historic resolution to open our party's membership to persons, to Jamaicans living anywhere in the world, as long as they meet the necessary criteria. We've often said how important the diaspora is to Jamaica. And I think it's timely that our party is recognizing that by passing this resolution today. We are, of course, meeting at a time where we have had a number of issues arising recently. We had the Commonwealth Secretary General challenge that Jamaica embarked on a sort of frolic, which has been ended up being an embarrassment to the country, quite frankly. You know, when it was first announced, I spoke in Parliament about it, and I said, listen, you know, you've got off on the wrong foot, because if you are approaching a challenge like this without a united CARICOM behind you, then you're definitely not maximizing Jamaica's potential for winning. And as it has transpired, this is the situation. And of course, we didn't carry Africa with us largely. And, you know, those are our traditional allies in international fora. And many of our own Caribbean countries didn't support our candidates. And a lot of money was spent on it. You know, an international PR company was hired, 99,000 US for a 3-month contract. That's 15 million Jamaican dollars, plus all sorts of other travel expenses and so on. And we are demanding a full accounting for what this was. How much did this escapade cost the Jamaican taxpayer? And you know, for Jamaica to embark on something, when there's an incumbent there, there's a convention that the person normally sits 2 terms, and that person was a Caribbean candidate. And for us to challenge a Caribbean candidate and then lose, it is a real embarrassment. So, you know, I think Jamaica has seen how inept the Jamaica Labour Party is in conducting foreign international affairs and these types of arrangements. They have for too long been taking positions which divide CARICOM, whether it be on the support for the Trump approach through the OAS to Venezuela, who has been such a great friend of Jamaica, and we respect and have always upheld the principles of individual states having the right of self-determination. And we have not taken positions of hostility to friends because, you know, based on their internal affairs. That is how Jamaica has always operated, because that is the rule of law in international affairs. And we have departed from that under the Jamaica Labour Party government too often. And it has not augured well for us. Here we are now in a crisis with oil, and the price of oil being so high, and America going back to Venezuela, trying to find arrangements. And we had negotiated a brilliant arrangement called Petrocaribe. And I want to big up Comrade P.J. Patterson, who was one of the conceptualizers of that arrangement, which has brought enormous benefits to Jamaica over many years. The largest volume of concessionary financing in the history of the country was under the Petrocaribe arrangement. And, you know, right now, we would love to have the opportunity to benefit from preferential arrangements with Venezuela, as St. Vincent has recently been able to conclude and the OECS countries as well. But of course, what position is Jamaica now in, having expropriated for the first time in history, passing an act of parliament to expropriate Venezuela's investment in Petrogas, and then having gone, engaged in the kind of process dividing CARICOM and trying to recognizing Guaido as the president, the head of state of Venezuela, and so on. These have been departures from principle in how we conduct our international relations, a transactional approach, which is a short-term and ill-advised approach, and which is now reaping the whirlwind of that. And so, we, on our side, recommit ourselves to a principled approach to international affairs, which has been tried and tested and has enabled Jamaica to hold her head up high in international fora for many, many years. And we've always avoided the kind of calamitous outcome of the vote in Kigali recently. Then another issue that we are confronted with is the state of emergency in St. Catherine. And that was another situation of embarrassment for the government. First of all, they announced the state of emergency 2 Fridays ago, on the very day that the Constitutional Court struck down the regulations, several critical provisions in the regulations as to how states of emergency were functioning. We had all along said that the use of a state of emergency in that way is unconstitutional, because you cannot have a situation where you can detain people for no obvious reason and hold them in for prolonged periods of time without charge and without access to any proper due process. We had put an end to the last state of emergency as a result of our understanding of its non-compliance and the fact that this very case was pending before the court. And out of respect for the rule of law, we were not going to engage in supporting a state of emergency, which was itself the issue being litigated before the court at the time. As it turns out, our concerns and our views on the matter have been vindicated by the Constitutional Court of this country. The government then, having initiated the state of emergency, had what you could only call a chaotic parliamentary week, which ensued last week. It started with the Parliament sending out a notice on Monday that there would be no sitting of Parliament this week, which was our understanding, because the previous week it was adjourned for a date to be fixed, have the sectoral debate having just ended. That same afternoon, a new notice is sent out calling us to Parliament on Tuesday for the tabling of the regulations for this SOE. When we got there, the regulations were tabled. We started the review of them. The very next day, Minister Chan calls me in the afternoon saying, well, we've tabled the wrong regulations. They don't have the amendments that we intended to make in them. How can that happen? You have a minister with a minister responsible for legislative and constitutional affairs. That's her job, to avoid this kind of chaka-chaka approach to the legislative process. Anyway, so he said we're going to have to come back again on Thursday and meet in the House to retable what they said were the correct regulations. And so they called Parliament again, and we went. Some of us, I couldn't go, I had other commitments. So some of us went, and they tabled another set of regulations, which we have reviewed. And I can tell you, comrades, that based on our review, those regulations do not pass muster. Those regulations are not compliant with the Constitution. And there are amendments that have to be made to them before we would ever support that. And I'm going to be writing to the Attorney General tomorrow morning to give him the benefit of our reasoned analysis of those regulations. Then we have the situation with the National Housing Trust. And we would like a full explanation from the Prime Minister of what his intentions are for the National Housing Trust. Many of us, including myself, took objection to him in response to public sector workers who are inquiring about commitments that have been made for housing to be provided for them as part of the negotiations that they've had over the years with the government, to be told that NHT is not a charity. Of course, the NHT is not a charity, but to say it in that context was disrespectful. The NHT is an institution of social engineering developed by the People's National Party for the benefit of the workers of this country. It is one of the great achievements of Michael Joshua Manley when he was Prime Minister in the 1970s. And its orientation and purpose must be to empower and increase the prosperity of the Jamaican worker. And the JLP don't own the word prosperity. And they certainly can't deliver prosperity. So I'm asking the Prime Minister, please come with a fulsome ministry paper on what is intended in relation to the National Housing Trust. When we hear the idea of outsourcing much of the lending function of the NHT to the private banking system, where those banks are motivated entirely by decisions around profit. Each credit decision is around profit. The NHT has a social engineering function. Its viability is assured by good management over the years. In fact, so good is its management that the government has been able to take out $11 billion a year to help balance the budget since 2013. When we implemented that, because of the very high primary surplus, 7.5% of GDP that we had agreed to get Jamaica away from the precipice where the JLP left it in 2011. The JLP or their acolytes took the matter to court to say that the legislation was unconstitutional. And of course, they lost that case as well. That arrangement lasted 4 years because it was a 4-year program we were in. Only to see that them now bring legislation to extend the same arrangement, taking the same amount of money out of NHT, even after we were no longer in an IMF program. But the point of the matter is that the NHT, and we got professional external advice at the time, that the viability of the NHT would not be compromised by its support for the budget of the country. We were not going to take any risks with the NHT. But we want to know what their intentions are, because when will a credit decision for somebody who is a marginal credit but needs a house be taken by a private sector bank? Or is it going to be taken by the National Housing Trust, which is there to ensure that they can benefit from a loan and get a house of their own? And if you're going to be outsourcing all of this lending decision making and providing a subsidy to the private sector of the interest rates, what is going to happen to the staffing of the NHT? Many of those people are involved in the process of adjudicating credit and managing credit after it's been dispersed. Are you going to be laying off all those people? We want to know what your plans are for the NHT. But the People's National Party is committed to the National Housing Trust. We believe it's a great institution, much needed. And in fact, we want to improve on the way in which it delivers housing solutions to the country and to the workers who make contributions. I move to the cost of living crisis in the country, Thomas. You know, we've come out of 2 years plus of pandemic. It's not yet done yet, but it has left in its wake a major disruption to the world economy. Consumer taste shifted during the pandemic because of the social distancing rules and lockdowns, where persons really could have to order goods online but couldn't socialize. So services were less consumed than usual and goods were more consumed than usual. And that put tremendous additional demand pressures on manufacturers all over the world. Plus the disruptions of social distancing in many of the key manufacturing countries. Transporting goods around the world, and so on. Has resulted in a tremendous inflation. It has been exacerbated, of course, by what has happened in the Ukraine and Russia situation, where Russia has invaded Ukraine. And as a result, Russia, being an oil and gas producer, has come under sanctions. And Ukraine and Russia, who are major producers of grains, wheat that makes flour products, dumpling and crackers and bullock, and corn that is used for all sorts, obviously for feeding human beings, but also feeding animals, and also agriculture. chemicals and fertilizers. They are unable. And the result is that there is a tremendous crisis on the people of this country. And we saw it coming, and we said to the Prime Minister in March in the budget debate, Prime Minister, you must push on the crisis on the people. Push on the crisis. And we made some suggestions on how to do this. First of all, we said, look, we are fully committed to achieving our debt reduction target. We are the ones who implemented the process of bringing that debt down, because when we inherited 147% of GDP as the debt of the country in 2013, it's under our watch that we brought it down in 4 years to 115%. We were the ones who passed legislation and put the fiscal rules in the law. So we are a proven commodity when it comes to sound fiscal management. It started with us, and it's our legacy to the people of Jamaica under Portia Simpson Miller with Dr. Peter Phillips as the finance minister at the time. But you know, we are in a unique situation now. The debt is now, at the beginning of this fiscal year, 97% of GDP. The target was to bring it down at the end of this fiscal year into the high 80s. And I've said to the Prime Minister, listen, just slow down the pace of debt reduction a little bit. Take 2% of GDP worth of resources, $40 billion, and strengthen the PATH program for the people who need it. Strengthen the NIS for the pensioners and the social pension. Increase the poor relief and provide subsidies for farmers, whether it be fertilizer or animal feed, so that they can feed the people properly. Because right now, many of them can't buy fertilizer. And if they don't buy fertilizer, their yields are going to fall. And if their yields fall, prices are going to go up further. And the wicked inflation will get worse. We also said you have all these taxes in oil, which are part of the price of fuel at the pump and electricity bills. You have ad valorem taxes, which are a percentage of the price. So as the price goes up, you collect more tax. And I said to them, listen, man, first of all, you have a hedge tax. That hedge tax was imposed by us for a good purpose. The purpose was to buy insurance on the international market so that if the price of oil went above a certain price, Jamaica would be protected. We wouldn't pay any higher price than what we bought the insurance for. They decided to discontinue the hedge. So you don't have any protection now in Jamaica against oil prices. But they kept the tax and used it for other things. And that we felt was unethical in the first place. And we've repeatedly called on them to discontinue that arrangement. But we also said to them, listen, your budget and the revenues that you're hoping to derive from these oil taxes are assume an oil price of $67.50 US a barrel for this year. From the beginning, from the time the budget was ready, the oil price was $100 US a barrel. And in fact, when I last checked a few days ago, it was $115 a barrel. All of the ad valorem tax on the price above $67.50 a barrel is taxes that you weren't budgeting to collect. Give it back to the people and give them a break. The motorists need the help. The taximan need the help. Bus operators need the help. We drafted, I personally drafted an order under the Provisional Collection of Tax Act. You know, so about them with it. So we draft the order so that to implement the proposal that we made in the budget to cap the fuel tax at the $67.50 per barrel, both for manufactured petroleum products made at Petrojam and for imported petroleum products in the finished state. And we drafted it and we gathered at Hero Circle and I did a very polite cover letter. And we walked in and we handed it to the financial secretary to take to the minister. He was not there at the time. I haven't heard from them since on it. I haven't even had not even a reply. But I can tell you, every week, virtually, another $4.50 go on either diesel or gas per liter. And it is incredible. I mean, when you go to fill your tank now, man, it's like giving blood. It's a very painful process. Giving blood is not painful, but it is still something that, you know, is an extraction from your well-being. So, you know, We are going to continue to recommend that. And, we are going to be tuned into the people and responsive to the people, because we must ensure that the People's National Party remains relevant to the people in a time of crisis. And when the people are ready, we will be ready. Comrades, I just want to say a few things about the party and party matters. First of all, I just want to say what a wonderful season of divisional conferences we've had. The energy has been turned up, palpable. The unity has been turned up, palpable. And the vibe has just been magnificent. And I tell you, it's like the wind is coming into our sails and pulling us forward in a progressive direction. And then, we made some adjustments to the shadow cabinet. And this was after a process of dialogue and consultation internally to get the team set the way that everybody felt comfortable. And I feel very good about the team. I think the team is a solid team and a motivated team. Of course, our time now to start developing the specific policies of how we're going to implement the things that we are committed to, how we're going to solve early childhood education and primary school, the deficits in that era, how we're going to deal with the so-called unattached youth, all of those youth that are the product of an education system which is broken and has not delivered for them, and how do we get them back on track to being good, productive citizens rather than scammers are in the badness and having the whole country in fear. So these are important things, and of course there are many others. Our agricultural policy is going to be critical. How do we take Jamaican agriculture to the next level to diversify our economy and give us food security? These are critical things, comrades. Of course, we also have the Tony Bogues-led Policy and Visioning Committee that has been doing their work, and will be delivering at the next NEC, I believe, the product of their over a year's work. And I very much look forward to receiving it, which will restate our ideology in 21st century terms and provide an overarching philosophical framework that will guide all our policies and programs and make sure that we are true to our mission, started in 1938. The mission will never change, comrades. Liberation of the Jamaican people, equality of access to opportunity, social justice. That is what we stand for. Comrades, I have a couple more things I wanted to touch on before I wrap up. First of all, I'm very happy about what I've seen happening on the international front in terms of the recent trends where the world is moving towards a progressive agenda. We have seen in Colombia, for the first time, a progressive government with principles very much similar to ours, now in charge with the new president of Colombia and the vice president, who is a Black woman, and we want to big her up as well. Then we saw young Deacon Mitchell in Grenada. Yeah, man. And he had been in their party, our sister party, had been in the wilderness for 2 successive terms. And to come from zero to victory, we love that. And even far away in a place like the United Kingdom, we see the Conservative Party reeling under Boris Johnson on the ropes, losing by-election after by-election. And the Labour Party leading, and that is the British Labour Party, who is our affiliate, leading in the polls there as well. So, comrades and friends, the tide has turned. It is now flowing in our favor. The world is seeing that human rights, social justice, equality, integrity in public life, these things matter. And they want governments that can deliver for the people and keep the people at the center of their policies and programs. So, comrades, the ball is in our court. Let us continue the work that we are doing, the trend that we are on, the vibes that we are building together. And if we have a VP contest, let us keep it the way we did the last chairman's contest, where everything does nice same way, and we never have any fallout, because the party is bigger than all of us. The last thing I want to mention is our donation for the students, Jamaican students who are in Ukraine. You know, WhatsApp is a hell of a thing. When I was hearing about the crisis going on and all our students in Kharkiv and where the bombing was going on, a couple of the parents live in my constituency, actually, and I was in touch with those constituents about their daughter or granddaughter. And also a young youth, a medical student who somebody gave me his number and we were exchanging, and he was telling me, this man, we're trying to get out of this place. It's getting very, very scary and dangerous. And we're trying to buy a train ticket. And I was able to give him a thing towards on behalf of all of the students, you know, because we had a bank account here to transfer the funds. And that was great. But then they said the party can do something as well. So we announced that we would raise some money to help these students. And indeed, we did raise. We raised $10,000 US. And I say, Andrew, I want to, you know, jump on the bandwagon now and claim same raise 11,000. That's great. You know, they're in power, so, you know. Anyway, I said, listen, we're going to send the money to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade so the whole thing can be done, and, you know, in a coherent way and non-political way and so on. Then them say, first of all, you remember that Kamina said she was going to lend the students the money to leave. That caused a huge furor, because these are students, these are not rich kids anyway, because one of the reasons they're in Ukraine is because it's more economical than education available elsewhere. And to put debt on them and they're not earning any income was a mad thing in a situation where they are faced with a life-threatening war situation. So anyway, they quickly had to backtrack from that when it was a public relations disaster. And then, of course, NIS released a press release, the government's official information saying that the cost of bringing them home was fully funded by the government. So I said, oh, okay, it's fully funded. Good, that money can now be used to help them in other ways. Then I get a letter from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying that the money has to be turned over to the consolidated fund. That's what the rules require. So, Then I get another letter a little bit later, I think a week or two later, saying that the money has been applied to reimburse the government. The cost, I said, it was a loan, and it's a loan that we, the People's National Party, were repaying. And I was like, no way. This money is for the students. So I wrote them a fairly terse letter. And, you know, they wrote me back saying, we're in dialogue with the Ministry of Finance about it. Because I said to them, listen, man, if we don't hear from you categorically that this money is going to be available to the student, I'm going to go public with it, because we can't leave this uncorrected. Anyway, they went public with it and issued a press release, a fairly disrespectful press release as well. You know, anyway, I'm pleased to say that the money has come back to our bank account now. And we will be ensuring that the students get every single cent of that money. The People's National Party supports the students from Ukraine, our Jamaican students who need the help, because we've stayed in touch with them and they're facing very challenging times. It's not a whole heap of money, but it is something that will at least assist them along their way. And I'm very proud that we're a political organization that is doing that for those students. So comrades, it's been a wonderful day. I thank everybody for listening. I thank everybody for the positive vibes. The party is moving forward together, stronger than ever, and let us just continue the work we're doing and do the work that we need to do to defend the rights of the Jamaican people and lead our party forward to victory, that we can once again form the government of this country. Comrades, the word is love. God bless you all.